All right, welcome to CNS Connect webinar series. My name is Amy Smith, and I'm the Manager of Certifications for the ANA. And today I am joined by Megan Rufael, who is also a staff at the ANA. She's going to be covering Learn How to Write SEO-Friendly Content that Gets Visits. So as a reminder, if you're a CNS, you can earn 1 CE for today's presentation. That's going to be in category number 5, which is professional development. And there is a maximum of 10 CEs per recertification period for that category. And I'll put a survey link in at the end so you can claim that CE. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A or the chat, and I'll do my best to keep an eye on it, and Megan will answer questions at the end. So as I mentioned, Megan is the certification programs coordinator for the ANA, and she's the owner of Megan Raphael Nutrition. She focuses on freelance content creation and SEO optimization for other nutritionists and health practitioners. So I'm going to turn it over to Megan.
Okay, let me share my screen here.
Perfect, we can see it.
Thank you. Okay, so hi everybody. As Amy said, I'm going to share some SEO tips with you this evening. I just want to tell you a little bit about how I came to sort of teach myself about this, because I think a lot of people can relate to this. I was finding myself with my practice wanting to make sure I was getting seen online, but I was not interested in participating in social media. It was just not for me. And I've found a lot of people since then who feel similarly. It can be difficult. It's very time consuming. Everything is. But I personally like to write and write blogs. And I discovered that learning how to optimize my content so that it would get found on Google was a really comfortable strategy for me. And so I know a lot of people feel this way. You might feel this way. And I discovered SEO and I've been nerding out over it ever since, which was as big a shock to me as anybody else. But most people kind of feel like this about SEO, right? It's super boring. It feels way too complicated. I know when I first got started with it, it felt a little bit like math. So if you feel like this with regard to SEO, you're not alone. I'm hoping that after we talk today, you'll have some simple tools that you can use to kind of get started. Sorry, forgot to advance my slide. To kind of get started with some effective keyword research and some SEO strategy of your own. So I'm going to get started by talking about some key terms associated with SEO. So let's just start with the first one. SEO is search engine optimization. So basically, there are a lot of different search engines out there. Google is king, but things like Pinterest, YouTube, Instagram, these are all search engines of their own that also have the potential for usage of SEO strategy. And I'm going to focus mainly on Google for today, but most of the stuff can be applied to some of those others as well. You may have heard what's known as the Google algorithm, and essentially this is a function of Google that searches the internet for the most relevant content. They want to put the most effective, most accurate information on the first page. And that first page is known as the search engine's results page, or SERP. So you might do a search for something and you might see, like 1,000 O's at the bottom of your page. And really the only one you're looking at is number 1, right? You're not really scrolling to the, 25th O. You're just sitting on page 1. So the goal with SEO strategy is to try to get on page 1. And we do that with things like keywords and, structure of our blog posts, et cetera. And I'm going to get into that today. As far as EAT is concerned, what Google is looking for when it assesses whether or not it wants to put you on that first page of the results, it's looking for whether you exhibit expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. So we're going to talk first about what goes into Google's assessment of whether or not you measure up to their assessment of EAT. So to begin with, let's talk about expertise. So one thing I want to mention before we get into expertise in particular is there's a term out there in sort of the SEO world called your money or your life. And basically what it means is Google is far more scrutinous about websites, blog articles, et cetera, that feature content that include things like finances, legal advice, health advice, medical advice, right? And this is particularly pertinent to us because most of the content that we would put out there would be potentially advising people on health issues. So it is really advantageous to know something about SEO and to really have a strategy behind it, because our pages are going to be scrutinized for that kind of quality when putting us on the first page. So when we talk about expertise, we're talking about things like professional credentials are featured on your site. You're using words like nutritionist, dietitian, whatever's relevant, whatever other things you do, massage therapist, physical therapist, et cetera, things that people are going to be searching for, but also professional credentials that show Google that you are an expert in your field and you basically have legitimacy in making content around the things that you're advising people on, namely health issues. Another really good place to make sure that you have stuff like this or information like this is in a bio. So a lot of times this is going to be featured on your about page. If you include things like trainings that you've done, certifications, et cetera, that's going to be super helpful. That's going to establish expertise. And finally, there's a lot that goes into this, but I'm just highlighting a few. Finally, having some good reviews on your Google business profile is going to do wonders. Also, Yelp is helpful too, but Google is a lot like Apple. It likes its own stuff. So if you have a lot of good reviews on your Google business profile, that's going to help with your expertise as well. So I highly encourage, I know this can be a little intimidating and difficult, but I highly encourage everybody to ask for that kind of response from your clients. And then there's authority and some of what goes into authority. And I mentioned blogs here, and blogs is really the main thing I'm going to be talking about today. There are a lot of places that you can maximize or optimize your SEO. Blogs are a main one, so that's where I'll focus today. But if you include things like references in your blog articles, if you link to the studies, the actual, hyperlinks that go, link away from your site to the studies, that can help with authority. And if you spend some of your time in your blog content summarizing studies, that can also be helpful. And then finally, trustworthiness. The Google algorithm, it's AI, it uses what's called machine learning. And basically that means it's kind of always evolving, which is a little creepy, but also pretty fascinating. So Google is always getting better at finding super high quality content. So we really do have to focus on all these things, but most of all, we have to focus on honest and accurate content. So you really want your stuff to be well researched, accurate, easy to read, et cetera. It's just the algorithm is getting much better year to year at finding and presenting high quality content. And you can kind of see it when you do your own searches, what comes up at the top of the list. The last thing I have under trustworthiness is backlinks from reputable sources. I'm going to talk a little bit about this more at the end, but backlinks are essentially links on other people's website to your website. So if you did like an article for somebody on their page and they link to your website, that would be what's known as a backlink. And I'll talk to you a little bit, that it helps establish trustworthiness, and I'll talk to you a little bit about how to get those later. And then kind of just some honorable mentions at the bottom here. Speed of loading your site. This is really important. Google wants to highlight sites that are really easy to use. And you might have experienced this. You might go to a site. I know for me, I'm almost laughing at myself. It's kind of ridiculous. I'll go to a website. If it doesn't load within like 3 seconds, I'm on to the next. It's sort of ridiculous, but it's a real consideration. There are some website platforms that are faster than others. WordPress and Squarespace have a tendency to be the best for speed and SEO optimization. Some others are a little bit slower, but they can be optimized. And I'll be giving you my contact information at the end. There are some free tools online that you can plug your URL into and see how fast your site is. And then it'll give you some suggestions for how to improve it. And then finally, I have listed here user experience. And basically, this is just how intuitive is your website to navigate through. Do you have a blog that has a link to another blog, and it's a relevant link, and it's well organized and it's super intuitive? As someone's going through your article, it's like, oh yes, naturally I would go to this next article and continue reading on this subject. Is everything organized well? Your menus, etc. User experience has a lot to do with things too. So, as I said, I'm going to focus on blog content. So that's where I'm going to go from here forward. But I did just want to give you an idea of some baseline things that will help SEO that you can do with your with your site. So as far as optimizing blog content for SEO, one of the things that you want to do is consistently publish content to your site. And a lot of people will ask, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm publishing a blog every week, every 2 days, etc.? I think the absolute best case scenario is like once a week. The better your SEO strategy is, the more, bang for your buck any particular post that you do post will get. And also, if you're using good SEO strategy and you are using keywords, which we'll talk about in a second, that are not super competitive, that will also speed up the amount of time it takes for you to get recognized on the search engine results page. So you could, some people do twice a month, some people do every single week, some people do once a month. More content can be better, but if you really do have a solid SEO strategy, it doesn't necessarily have to be a ton of content all the time. The other thing that helps optimization with your blog content is using up-to-date keywords. That means that you may have posts that you did before. After you learn a little bit about, effective keyword research, you might go into those posts. If there are relevant, super important posts that you want to rank for, you might do some keyword research with regard to that particular post and then make some changes. I recommend kind of looking at this every 6 months or so, but it does not need to be, this frantic updating of keywords, but you will notice things will become trendy and people will start using different terms for things. This is a real simple one. I haven't necessarily seen data on this, but like if you have your website advertising nutritional therapy and everybody's searching for nutrition counseling, that's just something you want to check in with every once in a while. And then the broken links, you'll probably be familiar with this with your own web searches. If you go somewhere and you click on a link and suddenly you get a 404 error page or something similar, it just doesn't go where it's supposed to go. That is something that Google is also assessing, whether or not your site functions well. So if you have links that are going, into the abyss, that's going to be a knock against you. I have also judicious use of keywords. So it's really tempting when we learn some competitive keywords to use them all over the place. And as I mentioned with Google's machine learning, it's getting better and better at noticing when we're doing this. It's kind of like when you used to write essays back in the day and it was like you had 750 words, but your teacher wanted 800 and you just start, putting in all the prepositions. Google sort of like that teacher. Noticing that you're doing that. So really the keyword usage has to be organic, but there is a strategy to it, where you want to place it, where you want to place them, how many you want to use, etc. And keywords are great when they're included in the body of your article or blog post, when you put them within the headings and subheadings. There is that URL slug that I have listed there. So for instance, if I have a blog post, my website name is meganrufael.com. If I had a blog post, let's say about intuitive eating, the slug part would be the dash intuitive eating. That's the website address for my blog post on intuitive eating. So that slug is a great place to put a keyword as well. And that's something that you do kind of on the back end of your site. And then keywords are great in meta descriptions and alt text as well. So let's talk about that in a little bit more detail. So what I'm showing you here is the word processing function of WordPress. So this is where you would enter, your blog post text. A lot of them look like this. This one is WordPress. Squarespace is kind of similar. It sort of looks like a Word document, right? Now, I mentioned in the previous slide that one of the places that you want to make sure that you put keywords is in your headings and subheadings. And it's what's really important. So I have up at the top in this green arrow, the heading tags. So what I have, let me just show you my first heading. So first of all, what I want to say, what's not pictured here, is that there will be a heading 1. The only thing that you want to use heading 1 for is the title of your blog. That's it. You never want to use it again after that. That's going to be your most important piece. And yes, that is definitely a good spot for a keyword. What I have here is my first subheading, right? So what I've done here is I've highlighted this and then I've clicked on heading 2 and it essentially bolds it out, but it actually codes the subheading as an H2 or heading 2 tag. Okay. So you could put a keyword in here and it's okay to use it multiple times. And I will definitely expand on that. But you could put a keyword in here too. And I'll explain first, so on and so forth with heading 3 and heading 4. So ultimately your blog post is kind of structured like an outline. All right. So with each one of these, you would highlight the subheading and click up here where it says heading 2, the heading tags, and then tag it heading 2, heading 3, et cetera, sort of in an outline format. Google, this contributes to the user experience as far as organization visually of content. But it also, by tagging it with the heading tag, it tells Google this is important. This is a focus of my blog post. And it's going to use that. It's going to look and it's going to see, oh, okay, in this case, you know, I don't have a particularly competitive keyword. And this was one of my early posts, but let's say the keyword was eliminate carbs. Google's going to see that and go, oh, okay, let me compare this particular eliminate carbs focused blog post to other blog posts out there that are talking about the same subject. So headline tags are really important because they just essentially draw Google's attention, if that makes sense. Okay, so the next thing I mentioned, meta description. Meta description is another great place for a keyword tag. And in this case, I have asked Google what a group of pugs is called. And I already knew what the answer to this was, but it's so great that I had to share it with you. So it's a grumble in case you didn't know. But what I want to show you here is what a meta description is. It's the part. So if you look at this very first result, a group of pugs is called National Purebred Dog Day. Underneath that, you see the description. The only plausible explanation we found is that pugs are known for, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That text there after June 4th, 2017 is the meta description. And this is what comes up whenever you do a search. You'll notice that you'll get that small little blurb every time you do a search on anything, right? On the back end of your website provider where you do your blog post, this is something that you can actually put your own text into. So you can decide to create, okay, here's what I want people to see when my blog post description pops up, and then pop your keyword in there, and that's super helpful too. So that's another great strategy for keywords, for keyword usage rather. Grumble. Now you know. Okay. So I also mentioned something called alt text. And as soon as I finish here, we'll get into keywords, keyword research specifically. These are kind of the main pieces. So the meta description is something that you're going to, that you can alter that will actually describe your blog post itself. The alt text pertains to any images that you add to your blog post. Now, for purposes of site speed and just user interface, usually like 1 to 3 pictures in a blog post is sufficient. You don't really want to use more than that. But on sort of behind the scenes, you can write a description known as alt text. And the purpose of this is a few things. One of the purposes is for people who use screen readers when they're accessing websites, right? If they have a sight impairment, they might use a screen reader to read, essentially what's on the website. So it not only reads text or the body of the article, but it also describes the picture. If alt text has been put in, it can also be blank and then they get no information. Google also looks at this. So screen readers look at this, but the Google algorithm also evaluates this as well. So it's evaluating, oh, okay, there's a picture there. Oh, okay, there's a picture there. Oh, and it has a keyword in it as well, right? So in this case, I've used an example. One of the things I want to highlight is it's not necessary to say this is a picture of. You don't have to put that in the beginning. Usually the alt text is about 125 characters or so. So you definitely want to conserve real estate for the important stuff. So in this one, I've said woman eating pasta at a dining table. She has a look of enjoyment as she practices mindful eating. So that's, I've squeezed that in a little bit, right? But I've described the picture. You don't have to say things like she's got a coffee cup in the foreground and, cranberries or tiny tomatoes. I don't know what those are. You don't have to say all of that. Just give the essence of the picture, but then you can also try to work in the keyword. So that's a great way to use keywords in your strategy as well. So let's talk about these infamous keywords. So what I'm going to spend the bulk of the rest of my discussion on is how to do keyword research. So how do you know what words you're supposed to use or what you can rank for? There's a definitive strategy around wanting to make sure that you are finding keywords that people are actually looking for, but also not keywords that are competing with, super big websites, right? So if you think about the search engine's results page and you think on any given page, there might be 6 results, who's taking up those spots? If it's Medscape and WebMD, and, these are the ones I always run into when I'm trying to write a blog post, or probably want to move on to a different set of keywords. So that your strategy is essentially to find the best keyword or that you can rank for. And I just want to make a clarifying point. Whenever you hear the term keyword, it was referring to either one word or a phrase. It's both. So you might enter something into Google like how to increase HDL. That entire phrase is considered a keyword. Okay. So one really easy way to start conducting keyword research is just going to Google and entering in, let's say, the question you want to ask or the keyword phrase that you want to check on, and leaving your cursor in the top search bar and letting the autofill complete. So what you're seeing there is I've entered how to increase HDL, and I've just gotten a treasure trove of information. I can do a couple of things with this. Oh, by the way, really quickly, there are some numbers. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor or not, but there are some numbers at the top here. Just ignore those for now. I will go into them in a minute. But if you don't have the extension on your website that I have, you're not going to see this. So pretend that's not there. So you're looking at, a variety of different topics. You're seeing foods that increase HDL in 1 month, supplements to increase HDL. This helps you in a handful of ways, right? Number one, you could use any of these phrases. This is what people are looking for. This is telling you what people are looking for besides how to increase HDL. This can be great for phrases that you use in your blog post about how to increase HDL. This is also a really great way to see what you might write about in a different blog post, right? So we're talking about keeping people on our site with a variety of different blog posts that, you might have one pillar topic like increasing HDL, but then you might also link to something that you wrote about supplements to increase HDL or exercise that helps to increase HDL. So this can not only tell you phrases you could use in one blog post, but it also helps you, kind of brainstorm what you might write about in the future. And especially if you're focused in one particular area in your practice, this can be super helpful. The other thing that I want to draw attention to is this portion at the bottom, people also ask. This functions in a similar way to what I just discussed above, the autofill, where you can get ideas for blog posts or you can use phrases. They're also asking these questions. A lot of times you're going to see real similar stuff in this area, but it's still worth a look. So you can get a really great idea of what kinds of things to feature, what topics to discuss in your blog post. Well, the last thing I want to mention, and I'm going to show you some tools that will, get into this a little bit more formally. But if this is all you did, you've got some great potential keyword phrases, but you also, if you look, you can see that WebMD has ranked for this particular topic. And this is kind of a weird screenshot. It has like, 6 results on the SERP for this. This particular topic has WebMD ranking for it. So I'm probably not going to go back and use how to increase HDL as the title of my blog post. I might still have it as my main focus, but I'd probably find some other keywords to sprinkle in. So let me move to another tool that I really like. So the tools that I'm showing you today, they're free or really cheap. There are lots of tools out there that can help you do keyword research. If you do a search, you'll find a ton of them, and they range in cost. There's a bunch of other free ones and they range in cost. They all do kind of similar things to what I'm showing you right now. Some of the more expensive ones really get into the nitty-gritty, but this is really all you need to optimize your content. So this particular tool is called Answer the Public. It's literally, I think, answerthepublic.com. I'm showing you sort of an abridged screenshot here because that circle is so huge. I can't fit it on the page, but basically I've entered how to increase HDL into a similar search bar on their site. And they've given me all the questions that people have asked Google associated to my subject there. So, I mean, you're seeing, you know, a variety of different things will increase HDL. That's really interesting. Let's see. Ayurveda. You know, this is all stuff that you might go, okay, I'd like to put that into my blog post. I need to cover that. People are asking about that. Eggs. I suspect a lot of people are curious about the effect of eggs on cholesterol. So all of that's going to contribute beneficially to your blog post. You're going to be answering the questions that people are asking, which is super important. This keyword surfer. So I'm kind of showing you progressively more and more information depending upon the tool you're using. So Keyword Surfer is a Google extension. It's just a plugin, and it is also free. And I'm just going to show you the zoomed in view here before I show you what it looks like when you get it on the page. This is really good information to have, and we haven't really seen this yet, but this is really important. Volume right there refers to how many people on average are searching that particular phrase per month. Okay. So this will give you a sense of how popular the subject that you want to write about actually is. Are people interested in this? You might have a subject that you want to write about and people aren't looking for it. And that's fine. I mean, having content on your site is great, regardless of whether or not hundreds of people are searching for it. But if you're trying to, you know, cultivate an SEO strategy, this can be a very important metric to have. This overlap, I don't use this very much. This is basically just telling us that if I searched how to increase HDL, and then I also searched exercise to raise HDL, about 20% of the same pages would come up, or 20% of the same results would come up for both of those. That's not something I use really, but I just want to make sure I explain that. So this is just a screenshot showing you of how Keyword Surfer shows up when you're searching. So literally you type something in, it just pops up right there on the side. And you'll notice that it has multiple pages. I showed you, I think, page 1 on the previous slide. I scrolled ahead a little bit. There are 41 pages of various keywords that they're suggesting and some data on each. I scrolled forward a little bit because I wanted to show you, you're noticing, you know, foods to increase HDL has, you know, 2,400 people a month on average looking for that. That's a really good number. And you might be wondering, what am I looking for as far as volume? How low should I go? How high should I go? And we'll talk about competition a little bit more in a minute, but essentially anything over 100 is worth trying to rank for. So, you know, don't let, you know, a 90 push you away. Okay, so that's your volume there. Okay, so make sure I covered everything on that page. This particular tool is my fave. This one is Keywords Everywhere. This gives you pretty much everything that you need to know. This one has a cost associated. It's $10 per year, and it's really impossible to use it all up. And it's kind of like the Google extension. You just toggle it on and off. So when you're doing a Google search, you toggle it on if you want it to report out this information. Toggle it off if you're just looking for what to buy my 12-year-olds for Christmas. You would toggle it off so you're not using up when you purchase it, you purchase credits. You're not using up any credits on, Christmas presents for your 12-year-old. Toggle it on when you're talking about, HDL. And it will, just like keyword surfer that I just showed you appeared on the page, this will also appear on the right side of the page. And it shows you a bunch of data that's really important. So we talked about volume before, right? The number of people that are searching this particular keyword phrase per month. The CPC here is cost per click. So if somebody pays for an ad about increasing HDL, it's going to cost $1.15 every time someone clicks on it. And then this last one is competition. That's a number that essentially represents how competitive that word is. The lower that number, the easier it is for you to rank on the search engine results page. The higher, the harder, right? So if you look down and you see here, this supplements to increase HDL, it's, the volume doesn't look enormous, but the number one tells you that it's super competitive. And why? Probably because a lot of supplement companies have ads taking up spots on the search engines results page, the first handful of spots, whatever, right? So this is super competitive. I'm probably not going to try to write a blog post dedicated to supplements to increase HDL or using that as my keyword phrase. I'll still address it because people want to know about it, but it isn't necessarily going to be part of my SEO strategy per se. There's a really interesting one here that I think is kind of the perfect niche. I know that word is like crazy making, right? For targeted content, right? And it's this: how to increase HDL cholesterol with Indian food. It's got 2,900 people per month looking for it. The cost per click is 44 cents and the competition is 0.04. It's not that bad, right? But there's a good, healthy amount of people looking for it. The one thing I forgot to mention that I wanted to tell you regarding cost per click, you are probably not thinking about running an ad on Google for your blog content, right? But cost per click can tell you how popular a particular topic is. So, wow, right? I mean, I know that there's not a ton of people looking for it, but, they might be looking for something, they might be looking for some product associated with it. So it can in some cases tell you how popular a topic is if people are willing to pay for it. But back to this one right here. So you've got a really healthy volume, 2,900 people per month, and not a lot of competition. And this is a great niche topic, right? I mean, like if you think about this particular topic, there's so many cultural cuisines that people might be looking for when they're, they've gotten some lab results or something like that, and they know that they need to, adjust their A1C or their HDL, their LDL, et cetera. But their particular cultural cuisine is very important to them. So they want to know, hey, how can I do these things I need to do for my health while still enjoying the things I enjoy? It's a great niche. In fact, I think if you searched for a variety of different cuisines, you'd probably see similar result there. And it'd be easy to rank for because it's only 0.04 in difficulty, right? So what you're looking for is good, healthy volume of search, not too much competition with other people. Low to moderate competition with other people. Okay. The next thing I want to show you is this trends column here. This can be particularly useful. So I've highlighted supplements to increase HDL, and I've just hovered over this trends column here. And what popped up is this reporting monthly from September 2021 to August of 2022. And it tells me there, again, how many people per month on average are searching for this particular term. This can be super helpful when you're trying to plan out when you do a certain blog post. Like, people right now over the holidays are searching for holiday-related cuisines, conversations with family around what we're eating, a variety of different topics. It makes sense that if you had a blog post idea that was, a seasonal, seasonal content, that you would hold on to it until a particular time. So this trends column is going to give you some insight into when during the year you might want to post a particular topic. That can be super helpful. And it's going to get seen more. People are searching for it. If someone's searching for supplements to increase HDL in March of 2022, and I wrote a blog post on that, it has more of a chance of being seen. Okay. So a couple things I just want to caution about what to avoid. So we've talked about what to do, what to avoid with keywords. As we talked about, you don't want to spam your post with keywords. So it's not, this peppering of keywords throughout the entire blog post. You definitely want to keep it as organic as possible. Again, Google is looking for high quality content that's real easy to read and navigate. So, and it is developing technology that makes it more and more savvy to when we're just kind of peppering things in. Another thing that's really important is not using the same keywords for multiple pages on your site. Now, I want to make sure that I clarify that doesn't necessarily mean that if you wrote a blog on intuitive eating, for instance, that you never mention intuitive eating anywhere else on your site. No, definitely not. It just means that you might have one major blog post that you're trying to get found, and that you're using a particular SEO strategy, like, headline one tagging a title with intuitive eating, and maybe not using that title tag again, or not using intuitive eating, if that's my subject, in the subheadings, but using it in the body, et cetera, right? It's just a difference in focus. So you can still use the word on your site. You just don't want to have it necessarily be the focus of your headings and subheadings and, meta description and all that kind of stuff. And then the final thing that I want to caution about is posting the same blog on multiple sites. So you might have multiple sites of your own. You definitely don't want to post the same exact blog post on both sites. It's what they call keyword cannibalization. So essentially, the posts just eat each other. And it makes it a lot more challenging to rank for those particular posts. The same is true for guest posts on other people's sites. So if you wrote a blog for somebody as a guest, you wouldn't want to publish that exact same blog to your own site. At least you wouldn't want to, expect to rank for it. You could link to that blog on your own site to the other guest post, if that makes sense. So like, hey, I wrote this really great post on so-and-so's blog, go check it out. You can do that. Just don't post the exact same post on both sites. Okay. And my last word of caution is the most personally disappointing one for me. You don't want to use a catchy title when you are creating a blog post, title or headline. People are not going to search Shrimply Great Ways to Get Zinc. They just won't. I wish they did. It would be fun, but they don't. So what you're going to want to do is, have the 10 best sources of zinc, or the foods with the most zinc, that kind of thing, right? Because no one's going to search for this. So if you have a blog post called Shrimply Great Ways to Get Zinc, it's really unlikely to be found. And it's a super bummer because I personally love to do that. So having said that, I highly encourage doing that just for fun anyway, because we do need to enjoy what we're doing. Not everything that we write should be just focused on getting everyone's attention, right? I mean, like, we do need to enjoy things. So, write your Shrimply best ways post along with all the other stuff. Okay. And then one more note that I want to make sure that I get across and just provide some detail on before we end here is I want to get a little bit more in depth on links on your site, or links to your site. So as I mentioned, backlinks can be a really effective way to gain traction with Google. It really does sort of validate your expertise in on a certain topic. As I mentioned, some great ways to get backlinks. Again, that's a link from a site that isn't yours back to your link. Are guest posts. I've listed Harrow here. That's Help a Reporter Out. That's a subscription that you can get. It's free. They send you an email as often as you'd like, but the emails come every single day, and it will be your reporter essentially asking for a quote from experts on a particular topic. So you might on any given day get an email that asks for something like best foods to boost your immune system. Can somebody comment on that, right? And you send back your, blurb, ready to be published along with your credentials and then a link to your site. And if they choose it, which that's part of the game, and that can be frustrating. If they choose your response, then you'll have a backlink out there, and that will help with your authority, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness, right? And that also includes publications, anywhere that you can get a link. Internal links, we talked about that between your blog posts. That the strategy behind that is it keeps people on your website. It keeps people scrolling through your website. I mean, you probably have experienced finding an article that you really like, and somebody has linked to one of their articles, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm down a rabbit hole with this person's website. Well, that's effective strategy. So that's great. So if anytime you write a blog post, if you can link to something else that you've written, and it does need to be organic, it's not like something where you put at the end of the page, also check out this. It's like, kind of embedded in a sentence relevant to the topic that you're discussing in the blog post at hand, linking out to something that's related, right? And the last one I want to mention is links to other reputable sites. This one is kind of hotly debated. You're not supposed to link to sites that aren't yours because then people leave your site. And that's true. Yes, if they click on the link, they will leave your site. However, if you do link to a reputable article, that does help as far as EAT is concerned. And it's completely feasible that could change. I think it's important to note that Google updates its algorithm regularly. They have if this is something that interests you, they have a newsletter. Unfortunately, it talks about a lot of other stuff, but whenever they make an adjustment to the algorithm, which they do frequently, it details what they've done. So that if you want to go back to your own page, if it's relevant, they may have made changes that don't affect you, but if they've made changes that do, you can go back to your page and make adjustments. And some people have found when they update the algorithm that traffic changes a little bit on their site, and so they do need to make some updates. But so far, it really does seem that if you're linking to another article, and you might want to do that maybe once on, a handful of blog posts. It's not necessarily something, you don't want to necessarily have a huge, list of articles in one particular, other websites in one particular article that you're pointing out to. But as of now, it really does seem to be okay. I know a lot of people are uncomfortable with it, and I totally understand why. So we made it. Right? Your little celebratory dance. We all made it through this crazy topic. I'm happy to, I'm going to give you my contact information here. Please feel free to email me. We have time for questions right now, but if you go to try to implement any of this and you're finding it difficult, send me an email and just ask me a question. I love to answer questions about this. And you can also find me at meganrufael.com. I have a tab there called Writing Services where I go into a little more detail about what I provide there. And that's it. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. That was so great. I didn't know any of that. I'm sure I'm not the only one. Does anybody have any questions? You can either raise your hand and I can unmute you, or you can put them in the Q&A. No, everyone's got it. They're ready to go.
I hope that made sense. I haven't presented this information before, and it only exists in my head. I was telling Amy, so hopefully you guys got something out of that.
Oh, we got some hands up. I thought it was fantastic. Okay, Deborah, let me unmute you. Okay, you should be able to ask your question.
You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I started my website in Wix like a lot of years ago. And I feel like SEO has been a real uphill battle with a Wix website. And so I've kind of had it on my radar to convert to WordPress, because I think no matter what I do, I just think Wix rates lower. Do you have any knowledge of that?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Really right now, and again, I hate this part of it, but things change all the time in technology. Right now, WordPress is kind of the gold standard as far as SEO is concerned. It really allows you the most hands-on, the most customization, etc. So Squarespace is also good. Wix, that one's hard. That one has a tendency to be a little bit slower. I'm not surprised that you're struggling with it a little bit. If you can upgrade to like a WordPress or something like that, then I definitely recommend it. But with, some elbow grease, etc. So some of those other providers, can be bent to your will as far as SEO is concerned. But yeah, there are some that function better than others. Certainly WordPress is one of them.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. All right, Sarah, let me unmute you. All right, Sarah, you should be able to talk.
Hi. So this may be an obvious question, but I just want to clarify that I understand exactly what a keyword is, because when I first was introduced to it, I thought it was like some sort of special way of notating the word that made it a keyword. But is it true that it's just the words that are going to show up well in rankings separated by a comma or whatever, and there's no other special thing you need to do when you're inputting it into all the places, right? It's just a word.
Yeah,
Okay.
it really is. I mean, the thing to know is kind of what I described is, if I'm asking a question like, so the keyword that I used, and I mentioned it earlier, that the phrase and phrase and keyword are really the same thing. There are some, keywords that are just singular. I wish I could think of one right now that would just be a singular word where you'd go, yeah, that makes sense. But for the most part, it's how to decrease LDL, how to increase HDL, what food should I eat for my immune system. That kind of stuff is what's known as a keyword. It really is basically all you have to think about is what kinds of things do you enter into the Google search bar. That's going to be a keyword phrase. That's as complicated as it gets. And the complicated part is trying to rank for certain ones, but the actual keyword itself is just a phrase somebody enters into Google, basically.
Right. Yeah, I think that just in general, the educational information I've seen around keywords assumes people know that there's like not a special way of notating it, like in quotation marks or with the asterisk or anything like that. It's just like the word. And I could not find the information on that for the life of me when I looked like 6 months ago. So I don't know if that's a question you've gotten before, but just like even describing what it is as opposed to what it's not in terms of how you actually input it could be really helpful too, I think.
Right. I didn't have a sense of that when I first started out either. I thought it was some kind of magical little thing. And I had no way of having access to it without being super techie. The only thing I want to say, Sarah, to that point is the phrase itself is not super special, but what you do with it can be. So when I mentioned things like putting it in your meta description or alt text, or more importantly, wrapping it in the actual headline code that I mentioned, that's something that is really important. So the phrase itself, is, like some of them are higher ranking than others, but you definitely, when you choose one, want to make sure that you're using it in the right spots and, wrapping it in the right subheading text, etc.
When you say wrapping it in, what does that mean?
Sorry. If you go, let's say you went into like a Word document or like, see if I can, this is going to require me to be way more savvy than I actually am. Hold on. Maybe not. Just a second. I'm going to try. Okay. Okay. Can you see my screen? No, hang on. Now, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So when I say wrapping it, I mean something like what you see that title that I have there. What do we miss out when we eliminate carbs? I have highlighted that text and then I have hit up here. I've selected heading 2. I've dropped this down and I've selected heading 2. So it just basically means I am turning that text into a heading toward H2. So wrapping, I'm sorry, that's stupid that I even said that. It's just turning,
No. You're good.
it's just turning it into a heading 2. Does that make sense?
Okay. So I think I get really hung up on the words people use to describe it as like a special thing. So you just mean make a heading. And by doing so, that codes it differently.
That's right. That's
okay,
right.
Got it. Thank you so much.
It's not just a bold, it's not just bolding it, but it is actually designating it as heading 2, heading 3, heading 4. Basically.
Got it. Okay. I did not know that was a thing. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks for the questions. Good question.
We have a couple in the Q&A, and I apologize. I didn't realize the chat wasn't on, so it is now on if anybody wants to put anything in there. So we had one question about how long would it take to see results? So I'm guessing if they're using your techniques, how long do you think it takes to actually see traffic to your site?
And these are not my techniques. I would love to take credit for them, but I just want to make sure that's clear. A lot of people say like 6 to 12 months. So 6 months at the earliest, you're putting consistent content up. I think that you can expect quicker results if you are really focused on you kind of using all the SEO strategy that you can. You can see some better results also depending upon how frequently you're writing content, right? So if you're writing once a month for 6 months, it might be a little slower than, once a week for 6 months. But most people start to see traffic pick up a little bit around 6 months and really start to have effective traffic around a year. And I know that seems very daunting, but I would say that, your clients are benefiting from all the content that you put out there too. And you might find as you get going that your site traffic picks up a little bit at a time. So it's not like you're invisible until 6 months, but you will notice a real change probably 6 months to a year. I hope that helps. At least that's what they're saying now.
Yeah. And it changes a lot, right?
Yeah.
Karen's asking, what do you think of Google Ads?
I think I'll say that it's definitely not my expertise, but a couple of thoughts that I have are, make sure that you're looking for who else is buying ads for a particular thing, because the ads, we didn't really get into this a lot, but when you're looking at that search engine's results page, right? And let's say you have 10 results, I think it's probably usually more like 6, but let's say you have 10, 4 of them might be taken up by ads. So I would definitely look through the strategy of what kind of phrase or what kind of thing you might want to place an ad on and see, is this something that I can effectively rank for or compete, is what I mean when I say that, compete with other people who are on that search engine's results page. Can I effectively compete with them? Then an ad is worth it. But otherwise, I think just knowing what the cost is can help you kind of understand, just your content strategy. I hope that helps. It's not necessarily an area of huge knowledge for me, but you do want to make sure that you can be competitive with it.
Yeah. This isn't a question. This is my own question. So what about having like a Google business page? Does that make a difference in it?
Are you talking about like the profile?
Yeah, like making sure that you have an actual Google business page set up for your practice.
Yeah. And I would absolutely, I think we're talking about the same thing here. I would absolutely make sure that, you get as many reviews from people as possible, so that, you always see those like right under the thing. It'll just tell you how many reviews. That's going to be something assessed by the algorithm for sure. That would be very helpful. Yeah. And as I mentioned, kind of like Apple with Google, they really like their own stuff.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else have any questions? I did put the CE survey in the chat. So for CNSs, like I said, you get 1 CE for today's webinar. And we will be putting out the schedule for 2023 in the next couple of weeks. So make sure you check the newsletter for that or check the website. All right. That looks like it. Thank you so much, Megan.
Thank you, Amy. And thanks everybody for your time and attention tonight. I really appreciate it.
All right. Have a good evening.
Bye.